thank y'all for coming out this evening. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces. I've known Ron for 20 years now. When I first met him, he was either on his second, maybe even third retirement. Obviously, that didn't go very well. About a year and a half after that, I guess, he started a startup in Goose Creek, an American manufacturing company called American Synthetics. During that time was Obama's first administration, and everyone that he talked to advised him not to do this. They said there's so much coming down from the federal regulations and red tape. It's going to be horrible for American manufacturing. Well, this guy likes the challenge. He did it and made it very successful. During that time, about a year into this, he came to me one afternoon and said, I need to talk to you about something. He said, I had an old company of mine that was sold several years ago, was mismanaged, and now they're looking at bankruptcy. And I looked at him and I said, that's very unfortunate. What do you think about it? And he said, well, I want to buy it back. And I said, well, you're in the middle of getting the startup off the ground. We're a year or so into this. And he said, listen, Renee, he said, most of those people on the manufacturing floor worked for me when I owned it. I know them and I know their families. He said, I can't walk away from this. I know how to fix it. This was 2 weeks before Christmas. He saved several hundred jobs. And those people had a Christmas that I won't ever forget. They went home to their families and they had a job, and when they came back, he made this one of the most successful companies in this entire region. It operated in 50 states. It's grown tremendously. And he always makes the tough decisions, but he always does the right thing for his people. This same company, during COVID, he had over 100 employees. The federal mandate was if you had 500 employees, which he had over 500, they were required to get vaccinated, or the employer is fined $2,000 a day per employee. And he said this will not stand. He had women working for him that were pregnant that came in and they were very concerned. This is an experimental vaccine, and he reassured them, no way, no how would he ever force anyone to put anything in their body for them to be able to keep a paycheck so they could put food on the table for their family. He never dodges the big fights. He stands up when it's important. And I think that's what the state needs right now. With that being said, it's an honor to welcome my husband, Reddy.
Remind people to text line up here.
So for those of you who can see the screen, it says there's a text number on there, 864-660-9872. So start texting your questions. We're so good. We are so sophisticated. Those text messages all come over to Kendall. He shoots them to my phone, and I'll start answering them at the end in the order they came in. So if you have a question, get it in there so it's in the queue. Typically in a group like this, we get through about 2/3 of the questions, so the sooner the better. So I first want to recognize a few people here. Mr. Stash, where are you? Mike Burkle? Oh, come over here. So Mike is, for those of you who don't know, he is running for comptroller. One of the things Mike and I have had many discussions is, I used to buy companies, and the first thing I did when I bought a company is simplify it. Why? Does anyone know why? Evil resides in complexity. Evil needs complexity to thrive. And unless we can figure out what's going on, we'll never know. So Mike's running for controller. I think he's just fantastic. If any of you don't vote for him, you better pay for your beer or whatever it is you're drinking.
Thank you, Ron. It was probably a year, maybe a year ago, a little bit longer than that I went and met with Ron the first time, and there's a seat, the Controller General, that was open. I'm now the Republican nominee for that seat, and I'm very excited about that. Thank you. And I had this pitch for Ron. I'm like, look, if you were going to turn any business around, what's the first thing you look at? Well, it's the books. And this seat sits on the books. And so I'm going to go to Columbia, clean up the books. There's been a disaster in our books, folks. I don't know if you know that or not. We had all these billion-dollar accounting errors. We're going to get that sorted out. Then we're going to simplify everything, and we're going to start doging the state. And everybody's going to know where their money is spent. So that's the goal of this season. I'm very excited about it. And
We need him.
yeah, Ron was very encouraging early on. So thank you for letting me say a few words.
Thank you. And then we have Woody Sprouse. Woody, you are going to replace Sleepy Joe Bustos. I don't know where Joe is. Joe is like, they have the Sleepy Joe Biden, we have Sleepy Joe Bustos. No one knows what he does. No one knows where he is, but he represents our interests. Terrible guy. Got to get him out. Here.
Well, thank you, Ram, and thank you for just a few minutes to speak. So I'm Woody Sprouse. I am running for District 112 against Joe Bustos. I've never been in politics. I'm a business guy for 45 years. And when I met Ram last year, listened to him talk about the Revolution 250, and it really rang true with me that we need to take the government back, because it was created for the people and by the people. So I think Ram's going to do a great job, but we need people like me in the legislature, because it's not made up of business people. So I'm ready to run, and I appreciate your support and hope you'll vote for me in June 9th. Thank you.
So I would like to know who I'm talking to, especially when you guys got stuff you can throw at me. So there's generally two groups: the real Trump supporters, the hardcore, and I support Trump, but I'm more of a traditional Republican. So let's have a show of hands. Real Trump supporters. All right. Okay. All right. Awesome. I don't know if I should ask this or not, because these people are all bad. So I'll put them all in one box. Yvette, she hates being called Yvette, right? She hates being called, what's she like? She likes some French version of that. Yvette, Norman, and Wilson. So let's see if there's anyone here. Oh, good. I won't get anything thrown at me today. So, any golfers in this room? Good. We're going to tell a golf story. Before we do that, Mr. Belton, would you walk up here, please? He takes a while. He's a little old. Don't worry about it. He'll get over here.
Hey, we're here.
So when I bought my first company in Somerville, South Carolina in 1990, I bought it from Exxon actually. Mr. Belton was my first director of purchasing. He wasn't very happy to see me in the beginning. Then he got a little bit happier afterwards, I think. And I walked into his office one day and I said, you know why they can't make this business work? Because they got old MFs like you.
But he was wrong. Look, Ron Reddy was a fantastic person in management, in finances, in all aspects of running a business. He taught me so much. I really appreciated him motivating me to be better than I was, and I respect him for that. I don't call him Rom anymore. I call him Gov. How about that, folks?
Thank you, Belton. Belton's also a fabulous golfer, by the way. I've seen him hit a driver from the fairway, which I try to do that many times. I usually hurt myself. Speaking of golf stories, 1986 Masters. Some of you are probably old enough to remember that. I feel like that's our story here. And Nicholas enters the back nine, definitely not a favorite. And people said, no, I don't know that he can do it. You know, it's been a while. And what does he do? Starting on the 13th hole, birdies 13, par 14, eagles 15, birdies 16, birdies 17, and almost birdies 18, and wins his 6th Masters at the age of 46. And sometimes I feel that way, and I feel like Miss Renee Reddy here, just with her commercial. Where's Kelly? Kelly, are you here? Huh? You think we can do it? We are technically competent to do it? All right, we want to show you what Miss Renee Reddy teed up for us this week. And so I say she eagled the 15. Now we got to bring it home.
I'm Renee Reddy, Rom's wife. For 20 years, I've watched Rom successfully build and turn around businesses. He has a certain toughness that allows him to get things done. I call it stubbornness. But mostly what I see in him is how he cares for people and his unwavering integrity. His political beliefs are grounded in the Constitution and his personal beliefs in our Christian faith. We need a CEO, not a career politician. Don't you think it's time for something different?
Yeah. So what do y'all think? You think she should be running? I don't know. Maybe she should. How many of you know what's at stake here, by the way? What we have at stake. It really is almost horrifying when I started looking at it. So for the last 10 years, all of these people have been in charge. Norman, he says he's not a politician, been there for 21 years. So I don't know what you got beat. Maybe 30 years, you think? What do you guys think? 30 years to be a politician? I don't know. Pamela's been there for 8. Wilson's been there for 15. My question is, how has your life improved? Has anything changed in your life? Can you think of one thing? I asked this question. No one can figure it out. So in 10 years, nothing's changed. But I'll tell you what's changed. The spending has doubled. The spending at the state level was 7-some billion. It's now 15.6 this year. Spending has doubled. Local spending said, hey, if you can double, I can double. So local spending's doubled. So the taxes had to go up to keep up with the spending. And education, bottom 10. Roads, bottom 5. Median family income, bottom 5. Violent crime, top 10. So in the private sector, when I bought a company, if I go in there and say, listen, you wanted me to give you all this money, I gave it to you, spent a lot of money, and you got no results, you're fired. You're done. Right? Here, apparently in politics, if you do that, you put in for a promotion. They want a promotion. You guys gonna give her a promotion? You guys gonna give all these people a promotion? I don't think so. If you do, we deserve what we're going to get, which is nothing. And people say, well, South Carolina's grown, so maybe the spending should grow. Just so you know, the population from 2017 till now is up 10%. Our spending is up 100% plus. So that's the difference. So don't buy into all this. So where did the money go? I'm going to finish this. I'm going to open it up for questions. So make sure you text your questions. Well, first we funded some massive agency growth. Education, $2.4 billion in 2017. This year, $4.4 billion. Social services, do y'all know what this is? I don't know what this is. 120 million to 333 million. The Department of Commerce, I wonder what they do. Mike, you know what they do? I don't know what they do. But they went from 27 million to 371 million. And parks, we all love our parks. You like going to the park, right? You like going to the park? Yeah. Well, how much you prepared to pay for it? We were paying $48 million in 2017. This year, $221 million. And our natural resources, what are we doing with them? I don't know what we're doing, but we're spending $24 million to do it. This year, $108 million. And my all-time favorite, the Charleston ports. By the way, for those of you who followed the Charleston port, there is no one from Charleston on the board. You know why there's no one from Charleston on the board? Anyone know? because the entire board is not made up of anyone who knows anything about ports. It's completely filled with donors. It's a donor-filled board, and you folks in Charleston are not donating enough. So you get shut out of your own port. Congratulations. But I love this ports thing. $5.4 million in 17. I've been giving you some numbers. What do you think it is this year? 148 million. And guess what? Savannah, we have the deepest port, by the way, on the East Coast. But Savannah, which is slightly higher than us in volume about 10 years ago, it's now twice, double our size, while we sit here with this donor-infested board. The second thing we do is, this is a specialty, by the way. We really like this. We're going to really refine this if we keep putting these people back in office. It's called spending without outcomes, spending with no results. They said $1.3 billion was spent on roads in 10 years ago. They said, you know, what is their favorite spending, by the way? Does anyone know what their favorite spending is? Anyone? I tell you what, I don't take donations, but I'm going to charge you for education. All right, on the way out. So this is what they did. 1.3 billion. Their favorite spending is more. So they said, we want more. So we gave them more. $3.2 billion this year. And this is not counting $5 billion they got under the Biden bipartisan infrastructure bill. By the way, the bipartisan, I think he got one vote. He called it bipartisan. So he threw $5 billion at it. The percent of acceptable roads, this is a national, the Bureau of National Transportation did this study throughout the nation. Percent of acceptable roads in South Carolina went down during this time of all this spending. Higher education. Who are we educating, by the way? You guys all, hey, Jake, I saw you here. You didn't get any education, did you? You're not very educated anyway. No. $700 million in 2017, $1.8 billion this year. Who are we educating in higher education? But then they said, listen, if we're going to spend that much money, we need a board. Don't you think we need a board? So we got a board to oversee the higher education, $100 million a year. Then someone said, well, I don't like higher education. I prefer technical education. Technical. You know, it doesn't cover all this AI stuff. They're plumbing, all this kind of, it's good technical. So they said, yeah, I got you covered on that. So we have a state board of technical and comprehensive education to oversee the technical education, $260 million a year. These people are addicted to OPM. People say, wait, OPM, it's a drug. No, it's not a drug. Other people's money, OPM. They're addicted to it. They can't get over it. You know, so then the third, you know, so this, it goes on and on and on like this. It's a total. So we're a red state, run like a blue state. Do y'all see any difference from a blue state where we spend, we tax, we get no results? Nothing. And so the next question is, how did it happen? Well, we did it. We, you, I, as citizens, we did it. You know, there are some people here who have run companies. I met a couple of people, business people. When we have companies, and I spent a lot of time in the early part of my career with Exxon, of course, and roughly 30% of my time was spent in people development, right? So what do? We take this fine gentleman who's on his phone not listening to me.
I'm sending you a question.
Okay.
You told me.
So we, this gentleman here, we say, look, he's a good staff guy. So we say, okay, we're going to make him an engineer, accountant. It's a career path as a staff guy. Then we take Alan sitting here and we said, hey, this Alan guy, he has some management skills. So we put him on a management track. And then we take Bill Shine and we say, Bill is a leader. Bill is a guy who makes decisions and gets results. We'll put him on a leadership path. Here we don't make the difference in politics. We say, oh, she really look good on TV. Wow. Or, man, I really like that one-liner they threw out, make something greater or bigger or smaller or whatever. And we put them into these jobs of governing. Did you see Nancy Mace the other day? She said, I submitted 65 bills, second highest, she said. How many of those bills became law? 0. So in 3 years in office, what have they done? The only sponsored, sole sponsored bill, they all sign bills that other people sponsor, but the only sole sponsor bill they passed, renamed the post office in Hilton Head. That was it. That was it. Now, in governing, it's all about results. So you get 65 at-bats, you better get 50 hits or you'll sink the company. So that's the difference between governing and all. So we're putting the people at the wrong skill set. And as long as we keep doing that, we'll keep getting the result we get. Then we say, why are these guys, like, what is wrong with these guys? Like, why are they doing what they're doing? So I'll say 2 things. One, they don't know any better. It's sometimes it's not that they don't want to do the right thing, they just don't know how. They just don't know. They keep talking about it. They've actually programmed people's heads. And a lot of times I'll go to one of these events and people say, well, if you cut this tax, how are you going to replace it? See, they've already programmed your head. If you cut this tax, how are you going to replace it? So I just go back to saying there's a 2-income couple, and one of the people say, I'm going to stay at home to take care of the kids. So what happens? You're cutting that income. So what do? You go get a girlfriend to replace your spouse, to say, oh, I'm going to get another source of income? No, you cut your expenses. So we got this thing all turned around, because this is what they make you do. Next, they must repay the donors. I love this thing. I bet you guys have all heard of things like DEI and all that. You all haven't heard of DFD, have you? You know what DFD is? No, this is a really bad group, I have to say. You're not very knowledgeable. DFD, it's a very famous word in South Carolina. It happens every day. It's called Deals for Donors. Deals for donors. We love deals for donors. We just 2 years ago, we had these beautiful offices for DHEC and the healthcare. The healthcare czar, by the way, is the dude that runs around the beach with a mask. He still runs around the beach with a mask. He's in charge of healthcare. Don't worry about it. He's got you covered, right? And anyway, so they had these offices in downtown Columbia, beautiful offices. They said, well, the carpet looks a little worn out. We can't recruit people with carpet like that. They come here and they say, I think I'm going to go work for the private sector. And those lights are not really too dim. It makes us depressed. We got to get therapy when we come to these offices. So what did they do? They walked out of their state-owned offices and leased $500 million for 20-year leases. $500 million for 20 years, right outside Columbia. Leased it from who? The biggest donor to the Republican Party. The biggest donor, who also, by the way, sits on the Charleston ports. Same guy. He got a great deal. And right before that, the Department of Education, where we're stuck at 43 out of 50, the lady running it is actually a good lady. She's just a victim of the system. There's nothing she can do. She just says, they say, you jump. She says, okay, if I don't jump, what happens? They don't jump, we'll shut you down. She says, okay, I'll jump. So that's how it works. So they said, your office is not good enough for this Department of Education. That's why our education is bad. You guys are all depressed, so the kids are depressed, so no one does anything. So we're going to get a new building. So they built a beautiful building right outside Columbia. You can actually see it if you're driving in. New Department of Education building that they once again leased from the biggest donor to the Republican Party. It's beautiful. All these deals for donors they have. You have no idea what's going on with your money, do you? You just this is the greatest hoax that's ever happened. It is the hoax of the withholding tax. You guys are all programmed. They just take it out of your paycheck and they say, don't worry, I can do better with it than you can. and you just let them do it, and they keep doing it. So that's where we are with these people. And so those are my opponents, five of them, 53 years in office. Over 50% of their money is this PAC money. Do you all know about PACs, by the way? There is a Supreme Court ruling that says that PACs can donate unlimited amount of money because it's a free speech issue, right? So they cannot restrict it. But they said, we're going to leave it up to the states to disclose the source donors to the PAC if they're involved in politics. South Carolina said, oh, you left it up to us? Well, I think we'll pass. We're not going to do anything about it. So we are 40 out of 50 in disclosure rules, which means that when these PACs donate to the candidates, you can get on AI, you can do whatever you want. You'll never know who donated to them. Never. Can't find it. So it's like a blind date. I never used to say it in front of Renee before, but I used to blind date in college, actually. So it's like a blind date. You show up there and you vote for someone and you have no idea who bought and paid for them. None. No idea. You can't find it. Just this week alone, there's 2 new PACs came into the gubernatorial race. One for Nancy Mace. It's the anti-Trump PAC by, what's that guy's name? Rand Paul. Rand Paul's PAC. $700,000. Last week, Norman's PAC came in, a national PAC out of Washington, D.C. to support him. You guys have no idea. You're just going to go say, I voted for some guy, you have no idea. And that's why when I got in this race, people said, you know what? Take money from all the people in this room. They're all rich people, they're all nice people, they don't mind giving you money. I said, I can't do it because I lose the moral high ground if I take $1 from anyone, because if I become governor, we're going to change these disclosure rules in year 1. We're not going to do it. We cannot have this. We cannot have these type of disclosure rules. This breeds the corruption. It's also how you have a legislature that's 31% trial lawyers when less than 0.5% of the working population in South Carolina are trial lawyers, because you got a lot of the trial lawyer dark money coming in. So you guys, this is how it works. You want to tear it down, you got to tear it down. So I say this is a once in a generational opportunity for you to do what? Throw a grenade in the swamp and see what crawls out. Yep, that's exactly right. You know, how many of you are familiar with Senator Kennedy from Louisiana? Great guy, I love Kennedy, right? He's just a great guy. He just said something that resonated with me. He says, keep doing what you've always done and you will keep getting what you always got. Right? I mean, that just summarizes South Carolina. So think back the last 10 years. If you like what you got 5 choices. If you don't like what you got, it's time to do something different. So before I get to the questions, we have a website, which is an AI-based website. So you can go in there and ask any questions, just like ChatGPT, and it takes all these different things I've said, all these different things I've written, and it gives you the answers. The second thing, some of you have commented actually on it. We've got some copies around here. It's this. Have you all seen this? Yeah. If you haven't seen it, take one. There's no one that has this. It's 12 pages of not just policy stuff, it tells you how to. And it's and there's no one that has anything like this. So take it and share it with your friends. If you want more copies, we got lots of copies of those. 2 key things to understand, I think, as we go through this. Leadership is having a set of principles you do not bend on. You just cannot bend on your principles. And having bold actions that fit the principles, and knowing that when you do that, you're going to take incoming fire, and you're ready for it, right? You have to do that. If you're not prepared to do that, don't lead. That's what I say. And that's what I tell people about leadership. So if you go on Ready Room or you go to our site, you'll see 4 principles that are laid out that I will not bend on. Many of those tie back to the Declaration. This is the 250th anniversary. If you read the 2nd paragraph of the Declaration, it says, we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Means our rights come from God. the very next sentence to that says, government derives its power from the consent of the governed. It means government's job is to protect our God-given rights, not to take that power and do whatever the heck they want to do with it. That started to change, by the way, in, I think it was Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president, I believe, who basically said Americans are stubborn, lazy, and stupid, and they cannot self-govern. And he started the beginning of the administrative state, where he said we needed to be governed. And that has now been put on steroids in South Carolina. We use this vast agency state, and we have weaponized government against the citizen. If y'all like that, then, like I said, this will continue with what we got. If you think it's time for us to change that, I simply say this: South Carolina cannot be fixed. It needs to be shrunk and rebooted. That's the only way to do it. And I have 8 action items I'll lay out there. All of them are based on a basic premise, and the premise is, slowly but surely, I know there's a lot of old people in here, including me, but even past our generation, even before our generation, money and power has slowly transferred from the citizen to the government. Everything I do, every one of those 8 action items, you can do this litmus test. It either transfers money back or transfers power back, because that's the only way. We have to transfer the money back, and we have to transfer the power back. I have everything laid out, including getting rid of the income tax. By the way, my good friend Ron DeSantis, who runs Florida, he spends $2,300 less per citizen per year than we do here. And he has better roads, he has better education, he has no income tax. And so, you know, I told him, I said, Governor, you know, you're so smart, man. I don't know if we can ever catch you, but, you know, how about we set a goal of $1,500 per citizen per year to cut out? So that's our goal, to cut $1,500 per citizen per year. So based on that, we've laid out this plan that takes our agency state from 100 plus to 35. All these boards are gone. The regulations, we already have a program we've been using in Doge SC to cut our regulations from 85,000 plus to less than 40,000. We need to get out of things we don't belong in. I know there's some people here, including my brother-in-law, who works for MUSC, but let me tell you something about MUSC. I think the research and teaching side, staying with the government is one thing. The hospitals and clinics, the government being involved with it, funding it. By the way, you have $800 million of debt that you own, that MUSC has accumulated as part of their acquisition things that they're doing. All of this thing needs to be privatized. And when we do all of this stuff, we are not going to leave the money in government. The first thing we're going to do is we have it all laid out. We have a citizen trust fund. Every savings dollar we have goes into the citizen trust fund. It goes back to you on December 25th and July the 4th. We just keep rebating it back, getting it out of government. And then when we see that stream of money steady, I'd like to say roughly $4 billion plus a year of these rebates happening, then we eliminate the income tax. Otherwise, we'll bankrupt the state. All of these things these people are talking about, they can't do it. I saw Pamela say the other day, I'm going to cut the tax in 100 days. Why didn't you do it? You had 8 years. Why didn't you do it? Like, what is this a holy year you're waiting for? Like, why didn't you do it? You know, and Nancy says, I'm the only one that's going to cut the tax. And I looked at it because I like looking at this. She says she's going to freeze the tax at $11.6 billion, and anything above that she's going to give back. Well, this year the budget is 15.4. How are you going to get from 15.4 to 11.6 to freeze it? These people, they have no idea what they're talking about. I'm telling you, you can fix incompetent, you can fix lazy, you can't fix stupid. You just can't. You just can't. You can try. It's not fixable. The property tax on cars and trucks needs to be gone. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It makes no sense. You can pay your tax, you can pay your car off, and you keep paying your tax for the rest of your life. You know, and then on the The property tax in general, by the way, so everyone knows, understands property taxes. Property taxes do not go to the state. All property taxes go to local school districts and local municipalities. And these people are out of control. $19 billion they spent in 2019, which is not that long ago, $30 billion this year. The number of administrators in the school districts now exceeds teachers. The average administrative pay is $50,000 higher than the average teacher pay. These things are out of control, out of control. And what is this stuff about government donating to nonprofits? I'll donate to my own nonprofit. I don't need government donating to nonprofits for me. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. We've got to stop. So we have a very simple program we've developed, again, as part of Doge SC. It goes in, it says, where's the cash coming from and where is it going to? In 2 days, I know where. Mike's going to love this. Mike's just going to love this. Mike is going to say, you're such a hero when we deploy this thing, because it's going to make his job so much easier. And so it's just going to tell us where it's going to. And what's the first thing that's going to happen? I'm going to walk over to Dylan, who's the mayor of some city. If there's any mayors here, I apologize, but this is really going to happen. And he's going to say, you can't do that. I'm not going to do this audit because of home rule. I'll say, okay, you rule your home, but starting tomorrow I'm going to cut off state funds. Congratulations. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a hoax. The authority stays with the state. The state is the single biggest keeper of authority. The state created the federal government. The state created the Constitution, right? We assign certain powers to the federal government in the Constitution. We should not take the knee to the federal government. We should not take the knee to the federal government. We have to maintain sovereignty. At the same time, the states created local governments, and we seem to have taken our hands off the wheel. No, we have to hold them accountable, or we're going to cut off state funds. The way I see it, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer. If you pay $1 of tax money, you're like a shareholder in my company. I'm responsible for it. I'm going to call the Clemson guy, and you're the Clemson guy again. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have been sitting here, but and he's going to say, I'm going to say, hey, when you come in, I want to see in one page how all this money we're giving you is benefiting the taxpayer. And if you can't explain it to me in one page, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, this is not going to work out. Sorry, it's not going to work out. You're going to have to go do something, whatever, run your own thing. I'm going to take this money, put it into my citizen trust fund, and give it back to the taxpayer. They can at least get 4% in the money market fund or whatever. This thing has to stop, guys. What we're doing has to stop. The madness has to stop. We have not had a CEO in the governor's chair now in a very long time. It's time we did that. And that's what this is all about. Last couple of things, I will reassert Article 4 authority, like I said, the governor's authority. The governor has veto power, the president doesn't have, but he doesn't use it. He says he can't uphold a veto. To uphold a veto, you need 1/3 of the House or 1/3 of the Senate. In a supermajority state, if you can't uphold a veto, it means you're not a leader. This is not a system problem, this is a leadership problem. And then my last thing I'm going to say is, not only do we need to free the judiciary from being picked by the legislature and then practicing in front of the legislature, I think we are top 25% for crimes against children. I don't know if you know this. Top 25%. And all these politicians all talk about, well, you're going to get the death penalty for the crimes against children. Well, in Supreme Court ruling in 2008, the Supreme Court ruled that unless the child dies, you cannot bring a death penalty because it violates the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. They said you can't do it. So now Ron DeSantis, I think, may challenge it, but it's usually pretty hard to reverse a 8th Amendment ruling like that. We can't wait. We can't wait for some ruling to be reversed. We have to deal with what we got. What we got is if you rape or commit a crime against a child 11 years or younger, which is first degree, all the way to infant. By the way, Renee and I have been working with my foundation for 20 years with child sex trafficking. It is a disease that's far more widespread than any of you in this room believe. And so 25 years in prison, you know how much time they do? 2. And then they get out, and they do it again. 12% success rate with what we're doing. So they go on and they hurt kids again. So what I said is this. I said, I was actually doing it as part of Doge SC, but it's going to be done in the first year. I said, you guys all know this. In a few minutes I've been talking, I'm a really nice guy. I'm a nice guy, right? Don't I look like a nice guy? Renee thinks I'm a nice guy. She said something nice about me. But, so I'm going to tell this criminal, I'm going to give you a choice you didn't give the child. Okay? So here's your choice. You're going to do every single year of that 25 years. And if you want parole, if you want an early release, a mandatory condition of parole is physical castration. Yeah. There is no other solution. These people cannot be cured. I'm telling you, they cannot be cured. I've been dealing with this for 20 years. They cannot be cured. So Denmark does it, Czech Republic does it, Germany does it. They have a 96% success rate. And for our children, I'll take 96% over 12% every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I feel when it comes to kids, if we do not have the courage to protect our kids, then shame on us. Shame on us. Finally, I'm going to say, what can you do? Well, when you think about what you can do, stop thinking about all these crazy things these politicians say, term limits, this, that. Term limits, to get term limits, they need 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to put it on the ballot. So the 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate are going to have to vote themselves out of a job. And how is this conversation going to go? Ralph Norman is going to walk up and say, hey guys, I'd like you to vote yourself out of a job. No, I've been there 21 years. I'm just voted myself in again. So those rules don't apply to me, but I'd like you to vote yourself. How's it going to work? It's not going to work. So I say, follow the Nelson Mandela advice. What did Nelson Mandela say? I am the captain of my ship. I am the captain of my ship. You are the captain of your ship. You can do it. You can change it. You can make change happen if you want it to happen. We need to have the courage, that our founders had. You know how they ended the Declaration? With the firm protection of divine providence, I pledge my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor to the protection of the principles in the Declaration. That's what they said. So the question is, do we have the courage at this stage to exceed expectation? What does exceed expectation mean? If every one of you went out and voted in this primary, there's no chance. The system is rigged. 400,000 people vote in a Republican primary out of 5.5 million people. 125,000 votes probably gets you into a runoff, right? The donors and the elites know this. They've got this system where all of their people are going to go, and all of their people are going to keep the system alive because they need it to be alive, because that's where their money is. So for us to overwhelm the system, you going and voting isn't going to do it. You have to take 3 or 4 people with you. You have to encourage 3 or 4 people to go with you. You have to convince them, or you have to send them to events like this. Or I have 2 Zoom calls every week. I answer any question, no restrictions. Send them there. Let them ask their questions. Get them a copy of the Reddy Room. Tell them to read the philosophy in it and the detail in it, and say, you have to. How nice it would be for your children and your grandchildren to know that on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration, you put your name on the books. That your name forever will be on the books. No one knows who you voted for, but they know you voted, right? How great would that be? So that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to exceed the expectation for yourself. That's what a revolution is. That's what our founders did. They tried to free themselves from the tyranny of a king. We are back to that. If you go to family court, if you go to one of these other agencies, Family court, by the way, people don't like me saying this, but I'm going to say it. It is state-sanctioned criminal extortion. It is state-sanctioned criminal extortion. We're taking advantage of people in the worst time in their lives. We're destroying families. It is there only to do one thing, to enrich people. There's one lady who come, I always tell the story to one of her events. She works for Boeing. You know, she's doesn't have much money. Her husband had a lawyer legislator who managed to take the kids away from her. She was sent a bill for $8,000 for a guardian ad litem that she never asked for. Those guardian ad litems, by the way, are a bunch of corrupt people, horrible people. These are all bad people. I can't tell you how bad these people are. They're beyond bad. They might even be evil. So she gets a bill for $8,000. She goes to the judge and says, "Judge, I don't even have a lawyer. They took my kids away from me because I don't have money. I have never seen $8,000 in my life. How am I going to pay this?" He says, "I understand what you're saying, but you're in contempt of court and put her in jail." This is what's going on. When you fear your government, it's tyranny. When your government fears you, it's liberty. We have a constitutional right not to be enslaved by our government. Remember that. And you have to get people to go with you if you want to make a difference. All right, I talked too much. So now, we get a little technical here, which is harder for me to do because I used to have a BlackBerry until a few years ago. How do you plan to reform our property taxes? There's only one way to reform property taxes, and that's to cut the heck out of spending, which we have to do. We have to start with the spending. If we don't cut the spending, you can't cut property taxes. I'm also, for those of you who are seniors, I think there has to be a way, like I spoke about earlier, for us to fix that from a senior standpoint. But I'm also opposed to people moving in from Surfer Dude, Mondami, no, he's not the Surfer Dude, the other, what's that California guy? Newsom and Mondami and all these people, they all move in here and they get a homestead exemption. A homestead exemption, by the way, is a subsidy. The way you get a homestead exemption is the state subsidizes local spending by taking it out of sales tax and taking it out of income tax and reimbursing local expenses. I think you need to live in South Carolina for 5 years before you get a homestead exemption. We should not be encouraging this type of growth. Growth, the way we're doing it, is stupid growth. It doesn't benefit anyone. And I think people just like to say, "Oh, well, look at all the growth." Well, we don't want the growth. Thank you. Stay over there. How would you rebuild relationship with state agencies and department heads? So, first of all, we're going to go to a cabinet form of governance. We do not have a cabinet form of governance right now. Matter of fact, we don't have a cabinet. So, in a cabinet form of governance, it's like running a company. You meet with you have a staff meeting once a week. You say, what are your goals? What did you do last week? What are you doing next week? And why aren't you getting this done? And every agency, that only 35 instead of 100 that we have today. You can't deal with 100. We don't need 100 for 5.5 million people. Every agency will report to someone in the cabinet. So every agency, right now there's no reporting. You guys talk about SCDOT, the roads suck, right? Everyone knows the roads suck. Well, it's run by a 9-member commission. 8 members appointed by the legislature, all political appointees. The 9th member is the Secretary of Transportation, appointed by the 8 members. So you think anyone is in charge of this thing? It's the Wild West. They have no idea what they're doing. So what is your position on the Second Amendment? I 100% support it. I do not believe that the Constitution is a multiple choice test. I don't think you get to pick ones you like and pick other ones you don't like. You know, you put your hand on the Bible, you take an oath to uphold the Constitution, you better uphold it or get out. You know, that's the way I see it. What can you do to affect term limits? I would say there's really, it's an uphill task. I don't see term limits happening. I mean, people talk about it. You really, they make it a barrier. It's called job security. 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate have to vote to put it on a ballot so you can vote. So you can't even vote for it until 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate agree to put it on the ballot. It's not going to happen. So these politicians lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you. I think we got to make term limits happen ourselves by voting these people out. A construction company in charge, the industry continues to face ridiculous insurance costs, insurance increases, so on and so forth. I'm going to come to that in a minute. Would you reduce the state income tax? No, I want to eliminate it. We don't need a state income tax. We're over collecting. It's a total disaster. This is what's funding it. We're over collecting. We're over collecting from the citizen, which is what's funding it. The state income tax needs to be gone. So let's talk about the insurance. So I'm going to talk about not insurance that he's asking about, but all insurance. So there's a direct correlation between insurance claims and insurance premiums. It's a direct correlation. As the claims go up, the premiums go up. So you say, why are these premiums going crazy? The premiums are going crazy because this state has some crazy laws. These lawyers, again, the lawyer legislature state, they have a contingency arrangement. So they say, hey, don't worry, Julia, I'll take your case on contingency and 50% contingency. Most states, what they do is they phase it out. They say it's 50% of the first million or whatever it is, 30% of the next, 20% of some type of cap. But here there's no limit. So they're encouraged to run up the premium, the claims. When they run up the claims, the premiums go up. They have disproportionate liability. So if Renee is responsible, if there's a problem at this bar and she's 10% responsible, if they feel she has deep pockets, they can go after her for 100%. So there's no proportionate liability. So what happens? Claims go up. Insurance company says, my premiums go up. You love this one. Everyone understands this one. They don't have to claim medical expenses paid. They can claim medical expenses billed. Right? Why? So they can run up the claims, hence run up their contingency. The side effect is it runs up your premiums. So if you want to control insurance, stop playing all these stupid games and passing laws that mean nothing at all. Just go ahead and say we are going to focus on controlling the claims. You control the claims, the premiums go down. Do you have uncontrolled claims like the state has? Get ready. Things are going to get much worse. If you win, what's the first measurable thing? Okay, I forgot to mention this. I'm going to go on a limb and say that. They tell me not to say these things, but I don't have any advisors, so they tell me something and I don't listen to anyone. So here's what I'm going to do. Because in restructuring businesses, this is what I believe. You do not want to do the slow drip. You do a little piece here, little piece here. People are walking in saying, oh my gosh, what's going to happen today? Am I going to lose my job today? He lost his job yesterday, so this week is my turn. You never want to do that. It demoralizes an organization. So you want to do it in one fell swoop. I love one fell swoop. That's my favorite. That's what I like doing. So I'm going to make this commitment to you. Very, very soon, hopefully by December of the first year, you will get rebates from the Citizen Trust Fund. That's my commitment to you. I'm going, and like I said, for everything I do, everything I have on there, I said, if I don't get these things done in 4 years, I won't run again. Plain and simple. Hold me accountable for the result. And so we're gonna get this money back to you. You're going to see this happening very quickly. You're going to see judicial reform very quickly. You're going to see most of these things here that on that list happening very quickly and very fast. Electric generation and competitiveness. I'm going to very quickly answer that because that's a longer conversation. So in understanding power, you got to understand there's two pieces to it. Most of these politicians don't understand that. It's very sad. There's a power generation piece, and then there's a power distribution piece. Our power distribution grid needs help. Our power generation piece, if you do not do data centers, and I'm dead opposed to them, by the way. This data center thing is the next hoax coming. So locally, if you guys can stop it, stop it. It is a total hoax. And if we do not do data centers, our power generation is actually in balance, almost for the next 8 to 10 years. And after that, I would just do gas power generation if you need it. You saw what happened, right? Every time they take on these big projects. And all these things the politicians tell you that, oh, we're going to just get these guys to pay for it. It's all lies. It's all BS. All the same stuff. They don't understand it because the power generation here is cost plus. Cost plus means they come to you and say, okay, I'm running out of power. I need the next big step. The next big step is from here to there. I can only do it in a big step. That step is $4 billion. And you say, well, you know, why are you doing this? Like, we're doing it for the data center. And the data center says, no, I didn't need that big step. I only needed a small piece of that. And the power center says, well, I can't do a small piece of that. So guess what? You're going to eat it, just like you're eating the $10 billion nuclear power write-off. You're going to eat it. So get ready. Don't listen to this thing. Like I tell you, these people do not know how to make deals. Do you know the last deal they did? Scout Motors. $1.3 billion. So I simply asked the guy, I won't tell you who it was a senator. I said, Senator, what was the next best deal they had? He says, I don't know. I said, how can you not know? Why would that be the first question you say? You're ready to give them our taxpayer money. Why wouldn't you say, what's the next best deal? He said, I don't know. So I looked into it. We gave them $1.3 billion. The next best deal on the table was the state of Mississippi at $150 million. So how about we go to them and say, $151 million, take it or leave it, right? Instead we give them $1.3 billion. These people don't know how to make deals. They've never run anything in their lives. Now they want to run, you know, this thing with OPM. Very quickly, how can you spread the word? You need to be heard because it's believable. I don't know, that's up to you guys. What agencies might you eliminate? I've got them laid out. We go from 135. It's easy actually if you look at it. We have 17 public safety agencies. 17. They don't report to anyone. They all are independent fiefdoms. We need 2. You know, we have, I don't know, maybe even higher than that, healthcare agencies. We have 4 or 5 admin agencies. We have 15 or 17 education agents. Yeah, I can't even make this stuff up. We've got so many agencies, and each of them has their own infrastructure. They have a president, a secretary, whatever. And by the way, the average median family income in South Carolina, $60,000 a year. You know what raises some of these people got? You know, the Department of Juvenile Justice, the head, he's doing so well because we're in the top 10 in violent crime for the last 15 years. They gave him a $58,000 raise. That's not a salary. That's his raise. $58,000. Jake is sitting there saying, I haven't gotten $58,000 in my whole life. You know, you need to go work for the government, dude. That's where it is, unless I'm governor, in which case it won't work. I'm sorry, it says if cutting state funds to MUSC research, who's going to continue to finance the work? No, I didn't say that. I said MUSC research and teaching is different. That typically you have to fund it. If you want research and teaching, you can't, that typically doesn't get funded. So I think research and teaching is something that will have to be under the government, if that's something that's important as a priority. I'm talking about all the clinics and hospitals. Can you beat the good old boy state? Well, the first thing we need to do with the good old boy state is take the money out. If you take the money out, then you have a chance. So, I love this. Who sent me this thing? You get a free beer wherever you are. Should political candidates be like NASCAR drivers and wear their donors on their clothing? I love it. Boy, what a great idea. I would simply say, to anyone you're going to vote for, say, are you going to disclose your donors? Are you going to disclose your donors? Because if you don't disclose your donors, I'm not going to vote for you. You should say, why wouldn't they disclose their donors? Disclose your donors. I want to know who voted for you. You know, I can tell you, one candidate is being financed by the same guy who got the office deals and who wants to open the casino. By the way, I don't oppose casinos, and from a gambling standpoint, you're an adult. If you want to gamble, gamble. I oppose casinos because for 20 years, Renee and I have done this work. They've become the center of child trafficking. It is the center of child trafficking. I will not allow that to happen, no matter what. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of questions there. I'm not going to be able to get to them because we're almost out of time. I'm at the point where I think Oakland, California is safer than Charlotte, North Carolina. How do we prevent that level of crime from happening here? It's already happening here. You know, Stephen Federico came to one of our rallies. I was telling someone the story about Stephen Federico, beautiful girl, his daughter, 22 years old, visiting South Carolina last year, May 3rd actually, exactly 1 year ago. This thug breaks into the house, pulls her out of the bed, and assassinates her. Takes her car and goes on a shopping spree. And then they found this guy, 39 prior convictions. 39 prior convictions. So here is the, you know, we always equate guns and crime and all. It's a hoax. It's nothing to do with the guns. I'll tell you why the crime is so bad. 2/3 of violent crime is committed by repeat offenders. We cannot seem to do anything with these guys. They come in, they get a slap on the wrist, they back out. The other 1/3 of violent crime, a big part of that, is Rudy Giuliani's broken window theory, which is small crimes lead to bigger crimes. You don't do anything with small crimes, you get to bigger crimes. So, you know, there's some generic questions here. I'm going to wrap it up here very quickly. On roads, someone says, what about roads? Well, I already told you about how we fix roads. I want to be in charge. I want to appoint the transportation secretary. He'll be reporting to me every week. I used to run a construction company in 50 states. We'll get these roads fixed very quickly. But I'll tell you something else that's going on with roads that's bad. 2/3 of the roads, 41,000 miles, managed centrally out of Colombia. That's the Russian Gulag system of management. King Street, downtown Charleston, managed out of Colombia. Can you believe that? The second thing is, it is riddled with DEI. You cannot hire a non-minority without getting written approval. Every contract they have requires women and minority-owned business to be part of it. Pamela knows something about it. She used to market her company as a woman-owned business or whatever. By the way, Mike, I want to ask you a question, wherever Mike is. You know, she says her company is $1 billion company. You know how she came up with that? They came and solicited my business, by the way, when I was running Sprinter, our company. They processed payroll. She says it's $1 billion company. I said, how'd she get to $1 billion company? Well, here's how she gets there. She comes in and she says, hey, Ram, I'd like to process your payroll. I said, okay. My company was too big for their company to process. I was doing it myself. But so, okay, my payroll is $200 million a year. She says, okay, I'll process it. I get a 0.5% fee to process it. But she counts the entire $200 million as her revenue. She says, I'm now a $200 million company. I said, why do you lie to people? People don't really care. They just want to know the truth. Okay, so the DEI has to come out of these contracts. And then I've read the contracts, by the way, at SCDOT. The person who does the contracts, Mr. Belton, who back there probably knows a thing or two about contracts. They're either drunk, incompetent, or both. I'm going to pick both because some of the things doesn't fit drunk or incompetent. So they don't understand risk. They take on all the risk for overruns. They take on all the risk for delays. And the contractor is not held accountable. The next thing they do is all maintenance in the state is done in-house. So you got trucks, you got people all on your payroll. That's why if you see some maintenance being done, you see 3 guys on a cell phone, 1 guy eating a sandwich, 1 guy saying, well, I don't know, maybe we'll start working here in a couple hours. Because they all get paid no matter what happens, right? All that has to go. We can't do maintenance in-house. I'd be out of business literally in a month. So the whole thing has to be reset, just like education. There's a whole long list. Some of it is in the Reddy room. We should read it on how I will get education to the top 10. It's a disgrace to our children disgrace. Education is economic freedom, at least that's what my mom used to tell me when I said, is education that important? She said, you'll get educated. It's economic freedom. And it's true. What we have is economic tyranny when 68% of fourth graders cannot read at grade level. And so we'll get education, we'll get roads fixed. We really, well, we can reset the state. We can reset it very quickly. So with that, in the interest of time, I'm going to wrap up. You guys have been a great audience. I hope this was educational. I like to make these things educational so you understand what's going on in the state before you vote. And I would say we need a good team. We need people like Mike Workhall. We need people like Woody Sprouse. We need to change the character of what's going on in Columbia if we really want to clean out the swamp. So thank you very much, and thanks for being a great audience.